Tesla's net income down 45% year over year. We have full details coming up today on Business Matters. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for being here with me. I'm your host, Don Ma. Our top story today, President Biden is set to address the nation from the Oval Office this evening at 8 p.m. This is the first time he's spoken via video since dropping out of the presidential race. He's endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris, who spoke at a campaign rally today. He is expected to talk about what's behind his historic decision to withdraw from the race and what he will try to accomplish for the rest of his term. Now, former President Trump, today he's also set to meet Israel's president, Benjamin Netanyahu, on Friday. In a last-minute announcement, President Biden will meet with the Israeli leader tomorrow. Protests and counter-protests in D.C. today over Netanyahu's visit.
And just seeing how our likely presidential nominee for the Democratic Party will react to this, I think is going to have a lot of say in what especially young Americans will vote for in the fall.
Whoever ends up being president next can help resolve peace in the Middle East, and especially between Hamas and Israel.
And you can watch our special coverage on President Biden's address on NTD at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. So U.S. business activity soared to a 27-month high this month. And this is according to an S&P Global Index released this morning. The index tracks the manufacturing and services sectors in the U.S. So the services sector expanded in July, but manufacturing output fell into decline for the first time since January. But there is a silver lining here, and that is we saw a pickup in positive sentiment from June's 19-month low reading. So firms appear to have some difficulty sustaining higher prices for their goods and services amid resistance from consumers. And on that note, we're bringing now live Nicole Walter. She's the president and CEO of HM Manufacturing. Nicole, long time no see. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Don. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. So we're seeing a pickup in today's data of positive sentiment in the manufacturing sector. So, I mean, you're definitely in the heart of this sector. So tell us, how are you feeling?
So I'm very optimistic and positive. We've stayed busy, which is great. I do think that a lot of my other manufacturing friends don't feel the same way. It is kind of a twofold situation. So some are extremely busy and then some are very slow. And that's been kind of the case now, I would say, for the past 2 quarters. But we are looking at a stronger Q4. Everyone's talking about that. Of course, we're all looking for like this Goldilocks scenario where, you know, the economy is booming, that inflation is down, same with interest rates. So that's what we're really hoping on.
Okay, so you said that you're feeling more positive, but your colleagues maybe not so much. Let's go through that. So what has made you feel better compared to before?
So we really did an industry shift from before. We were really heavily concentrated in food processing, beverage, and packaging equipment and the industry itself. And I would say since January, we've pivoted to more of the aerospace and defense, a little bit of oil and gas, but not so much in that agricultural industrial sector, but really aerospace and defense. And those two have really picked up. The volumes have picked up significantly. And I think what's really great about the aerospace and defense is that it needs to be American made. And so they're looking for a lot of small companies, small manufacturers like myself to help boost their product lines.
So you mentioned that others that you've spoken to may have some worries. What are the top concerns for them?
So I would say for them, it's a consistent thing of inflation and interest rates. I do have a couple friends in the industry that sell OEM type equipment. So a lot of tool manufacturers, normally they see per month about 25 pieces of equipment in their log for the month. Right now, it's almost August and they only have 5. And so they're trying to get creative with promotionals and start to say, okay, we'll sell this piece of equipment for 0% interest for 60 months just to get stuff off their floor. And so when you look at that and labor costs, and raw materials are back on the rise again. I know I've said this before, but even last month, I've had some of my material suppliers come in, stop in, and say that they are seeing an uptick. And when you're buying thousands of pounds of material, that really starts to hurt the bottom line.
Okay, so we have about 60 seconds here. Let's talk about interest rates. If the Fed possibly cuts interest rates coming in September, would that help the situation at all?
I think so, but I really do think that a lot of people are waiting to see what happens during the election. I know there's a lot of hesitation out there, but there is still a lot of manufacturing work to be had. I think for September, we have a really big IMTS show, which is the largest manufacturing show in the nation. And so a lot of people, I think, are waiting till September to see what the industry comes up with, and then we'll start to do their buying.
All right, Nicole, such a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, moving on. Investigating the assassination attempt of former President Trump, Congress today holding the third of 3 hearings. The FBI director tells lawmakers what we know about the shooter and his motive. NTD's Arian Pastor has the highlights.
FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before the House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday. Now, among other things, lawmakers tried to find out why the shooter tried to kill former President Trump and what the FBI knew about him before the incident happened. Here's how it went.
There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of rhyme or reason to it so far.
Wray told lawmakers that the FBI is currently looking into the shooter's personal devices, his social media accounts, and more. So far, without much success.
We do not yet have a clear picture of his motive. You might see a manifesto, things like that. We're not seeing that yet, but we are digging in hard because this is one of the central questions for us.
Wray explained why the FBI didn't make much progress yet. He says that even after they got their hands on the phone, new challenges popped up.
It turned out he was using some encrypted messaging application.
And again, the same question relative to the bombs: was this pretty sophisticated, or is this the kind of the norm you see with folks like similar situation? How would you describe
on this subject? I would say this has unfortunately now become very commonplace, and it's a real challenge for not just the FBI but state and local law enforcement all over.
Another pressing question is what the FBI knew about the shooter before the incident happened. Florida Republican Matt Gaetz questioned Wray on that.
We did not have any information about the shooter. He was not in our holdings before the shooting.
No communication in any chat rooms, no CIs or confidential human sources have any interaction with?
No, we've run a thorough search for the subject through all of our holdings, and he was not in them anywhere.
Wray made clear that investigations are still ongoing and that the FBI will disclose more information as the probe continues. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Now we have the latest on the Crowdstrike global tech outage. Delta says flight cancellations and delays should be resolved by tomorrow. Thousands of its flights have been canceled since last Friday. Now, Crowdstrike today announcing that the outage was caused by a bug that allowed bad code to reach computers worldwide. Here's what an expert told us.
When Crowdstrike pushed their latest security update, it actually broke the system. It was essentially like 1 or 2 lines of code that they sent in. The Windows operating system is set up in a way so that if there is a problem at the operating system level, the entire system crashes to a blue screen of death.
And Crowdstrike says that it's going to release a full root cause analysis once an investigation is complete. U.S. Fortune 500 companies, excluding Microsoft, that is, will face about $5.4 billion in financial losses, and this is according to the insurer Parametrics. It is likely that only a $500 million to $1 billion of that will be actually insured.
This number will keep going up as we discover more and more businesses, more and more individuals who are impacted.
Though it is unclear so far if the federal government will investigate the cause of the outage. Internet services are now up and running in a Gaza hospital. Elon Musk says that it was activated by his Starlink satellite services with the help of the United Arab Emirates and Israel. Internet connection in Gaza is hampered by a lack of power and fuel to operate provider centers. So this restricts hospital services and complicates work for medical staff. Meanwhile, century-old Conn's Home Plus stores will be closing. The furniture and electronics retailer has filed for bankruptcy. It plans to close nearly half of its 170 locations, which are primarily in the South. The 134-year-old retailer's sales have slumped as shoppers pass on discretionary spending, especially big-ticket items like furniture. And Boeing 737 MAX jets are once again arriving in China. The jet maker resumed shipping its best-selling 737 MAX airplanes after a lengthy delay. Now, according to Reuters, Chinese regulators were reviewing batteries that power the cockpit voice recorder, and the restart will be a boost to the U.S. plane maker, which has been engulfed in a separate safety and quality crisis. All right, taking a break now. Coming up after, U.S. Visa reported a rare quarterly revenue miss, and this comes as high borrowing costs limited consumer spending. And today's headlines. President Biden is set to address the nation from the Oval Office this evening at 8 p.m. It's going to be his first appearance via video since dropping out of the presidential race. And FBI Director Wray telling lawmakers the Bureau had no information of Donald Trump's shooter ahead of the rally in Pennsylvania last week. The FBI has gained access to Tom Crook's electronic devices, but says it has struggled to gain access to some encrypted messages. Delta Airlines says widespread flight cancellations caused by the global tech outage will be resolved by tomorrow. Crowdstrike, the company whose software caused the outage, says a bug allowed bad code to enter computers worldwide. And it's a red day down on Wall Street as the Nasdaq suffered its worst losses since 2022. So it's down over 3.5% today. S&P 500 down 2 3/10%, and the Dow falling 500 points, closing below 40,000. So heavy selling of mega cap technology stocks here. Tesla down 12%. We'll have full breakdown of its earnings later. Alphabet down 5%. Microsoft also down about 4%. Even the small cap heavy Russell shedding some of its recent gains, down over 2%. Today, earnings week, not too hot for some of America's biggest companies. Some reports are coming in as we speak, so we'll keep you updated on that. Breaking news, just in, Ford shares down 12% after market, and this is after a huge earnings miss. Warranty issues apparently plaguing the automaker. Chipotle shares up after its strong earnings report. Net sales topping estimates. Restaurant traffic increasing about 8.7% here in the second quarter. IBM as well, shares jumping on earnings and revenue beat. We're also getting new signals coming in that consumer budgets are being stretched, and they're looking for ways to save. Visa, the world's top largest payment processor, reported a rare miss for its third quarter revenue growth. So the company shared that payment volumes in Asia Pacific have slowed, notably in China, which is facing a slow economic recovery. AT&T attracted more wireless subscribers with its unlimited data plan, which is usually priced lower than rivals. As well, toy maker Mattel's net sales falling as shoppers have shifted to experience and service spending. But the Barbie maker's tight control on costs helped it top second quarter estimates. As well, Alphabet stocks fell over its heavy AI investment, and YouTube missing ad estimates. Now, despite the dip, analysts are positive on Alphabet's AI efforts. And as we talked about before, Tesla stock plummeting today as soon as second quarter earnings came out. Car sales, which is its main business, down 9% year over year at $18.5 billion. Higher costs did not help. Net income down 45% at $1.5 billion. CEO Elon Musk immediately addressing this in the earnings call.
There are quite a few competing electric vehicles that have entered the market, and mostly they have not done well, but they have discounted their EVs very substantially, which has made it a bit more difficult for Tesla. We don't see this as a long-term issue, but really as fairly short.
Now, competitor GM had recorded second quarter deliveries, and it hit a record actually, around 22,000 electric vehicles, or EVs, sold, up 40% year over year. GM is the only other major car maker to report earnings so far. Despite GM's success, the push for electrification still faces headwinds. S&P Global Ratings analyst Nishit Madlani told me earlier that EV sales are not picking up.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest reason is pricing. Today, EVs are priced about 15 to 20% higher than their gasoline counterparts, and the pricing hasn't come down as quickly from the automakers. That's one reason. The other reason is charging infrastructure really hasn't gone up to levels that's abated some of the concerns around range anxiety.
Madlani says that he doesn't see EV occupying the same amount as gas vehicles on the roads for at least the next 5 to 10 years. Besides the sales dip, there's a lot more going on at Tesla. Key updates: Cybertruck production more than tripled. They have plans for profitability by the end of this year. They rolled out technology that tracks the driver's eyes to make sure they're paying attention. Though car sales are Tesla's main revenue stream, it has many other technologies that could be major revenue drivers in the future. Experts say full self-driving subscriptions could be one of them, though Musk clarified this feature could take years to mass install on non-Tesla cars.
They would have to integrate our AI computer and have cameras with a 360-degree view, at least the gateway, like what talks to the internet and communicates with the Tesla system, that you need kind of a gateway computer. Given the speed at which the auto industry moves, it would be several years before you would see this in volume.
And of course, there's also Optimus, Tesla's humanoid robot. Musk says that he believes Optimus's value will eventually exceed the value of everything else at Tesla combined. So when asked about Optimus, the earnings call took on science fiction vibes as Musk speculated on what the future could look like.
So the usefulness, utility of a humanoid robot that can do pretty much anything you ask of it, I think everyone on Earth is going to want one. There's 8 billion people on Earth, so that's 8 billion right there. Then you've got all of the industrial uses.
Now let's dig more into the second quarter earnings. Our next guest is Paul Eisenstein. He's the editor at Headlight.News. So Paul, your thoughts here. Tesla, worst profit margin in 5 years. What do you think?
I'm not surprised at all. The reality is I think that Wall Street has been building a case for Tesla's stock on a lot of fantasy. There are things going on here that you can't dismiss, but the reality is Musk keeps talking about stuff coming. Full self-driving is a great example. How many years now have we been told it's just around the corner and going to generate tremendous profits? It continues to be, technology of the future. Optimus, yeah, maybe they'll get there, but there's a number of other companies that want to get into the robotic field, including Toyota. We'll have to wait to see, and certainly not everybody on the planet is going to be buying a robot from Tesla. But the biggest problem right now is they are having more and more trouble selling and delivering their vehicles. And we've seen them slide even as other companies such as General Motors start to gain traction. One of the things that was not asked during the call yesterday was how much that slide might be due to Elon Musk himself, who has taken an increasingly political position, particularly on the upcoming election. He's now seemingly backing off from a plan to donate something like $45 million a month to help elect Donald Trump. So there's clearly a pushback from potential consumers who don't like the change of direction he's taken politically.
So Elon Musk said that story from the Wall Street Journal wasn't 100% accurate, but let's talk about what he needs to do, right? What does Tesla need to do to reinvigorate that excitement that we've seen years ago from investors?
Well, they need to have Elon Musk invent a time machine and go back a couple of years and start developing updated products. One of the biggest problems that they have is And I challenge anybody who is watching this to go on the street and figure out which is the new version of the Model 3 versus the old one. The reality is, unlike the rest of the industry, Musk seems to have believed that they could get away with doing a little bit of tweaking on their vehicles and not having to come up with significant updates on a regular basis. That's clearly hurt them. They have the Model 3, which is virtually identical to the old one, and they still haven't updated their bestseller, the Model Y. They've also delayed coming up with those low-cost models. And based on Tesla's history, it would be really, really a surprise if they come up with those low-cost models next year as they promise.
So if we're seeing a decline in Tesla here, is there an rival, a competitor that is stepping up now?
We're starting to see growth by a lot of the other manufacturers, including mainstream. You mentioned Wall Street Journal. They did a very interesting story just the other day, talking about how Rivian is becoming the un-Tesla or the un-Musk, if you will. And the reality is we're seeing a lot of people who just don't like Tesla the way it is right now. I hear it from friends, I hear it from our readers and others who are going over to other manufacturers, including that startup, Rivian, and maybe we'll see Lucid gain traction when they bring out their Gravity SUV later this year. But GM will be watching very closely to see if they start picking off more Tesla potential customers as they launch new models like the Chevy Equinox EV later this year. And by the way, one point I want to make, you had an analyst on a moment ago who was making it sound like EV sales in general are falling. Tesla's down, but the rest of the industry is up. And if you look at it, we're going to be seeing somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1.4 million EVs sold this year. That's 14 times as many EVs as were sold in 2019. That's still significant.
All right, Paul, always great to hear your insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on here. But it is all the stories that we have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. And if you have anything to tell me, you can feel free to just email me. You can tell us at business@ntd.com or leave a comment. I do read them. And once again, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.